Garry Linnell, welcome to Late Agenda.
Thanks, Helen.
Can you explain your overall strategy with this restructuring?
We have no choice. We have to restructure. Given the changes in the media over the last 5 years or 10 years, we've seen it coming for a long time. And you've seen a lot of changes, say, in North America and Europe. We've probably been 3 or 4 years behind the ball, just following them. I think over in North America we've seen a newspaper closing almost every fortnight over there over the last few years, both in regional levels and suburban levels. So, I mean, the world is changing for the media. It's fragmenting. It's fragmenting as we watch it. And we've got no choice but to change, to follow our audiences. Our audiences are moving digitally. They're on the tablets now, they're online. We're reaching about 7 million unduplicated audience a month around Australia, both digitally and in print. So we certainly have a vast audience. smh.com.au is the #1 news website in Australia.
So are you saying you were absolutely forced to do it because of the pace that consumers are moving to digital platforms?
Absolutely. There were the two things. There's our cost base, which needs to change because of the way that the media landscape is changing. And there's also where our audiences are going. And over the last 3 or 4 years, we've watched them move digitally, particularly audiences who consume The Age, the Sydney Morning Herald. A lot of them are on tablets. Our apps are actually on 1 in every 3 tablets in Australia.
So this is really your last chance to save your metro newspapers. This is your last chance to save the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age?
I think a lot of people have said that dusk is setting on the newspaper industry around the world. I'm actually an optimist. I think newspapers can hold on for as long as possible. We're seeing people over the age of 40, and let's be frank, there is a view that if you're not reading a newspaper now, you might never pick up a newspaper again. But there's still a lot of people around this country, millions and millions, who are picking up newspapers every day, and it's a part of their life. And I think they'll stay with them for as long as they can, and as long as we keep providing what they want. And that's the critical issue here.
And yet in the same breath, you're saying you have to upend completely what the company has been doing for many, many decades.
Yeah, I don't think we're completely upending. We got into the internet back in 1996. We were among the first to start up a news website. And when you look back, I mean, I was in Fairfax at that time, and there was just one little desk with a computer terminal on it, and everyone was allowed to wander over and have a look at this really weird thing that was called the World Wide Web. And a lot of us back then probably thought, oh, it's a great little curiosity, it won't go very far. And here we are now with this vast audience online. People are dipping in at certain times of the day. And we've got a follow the sun editorial strategy. So, you know, in the morning, it's our newspapers that they go to on our tablets. And by 8:30, 9 o'clock, we're watching that vast audience out there logging in, going to our news websites, looking for breaking news, increasingly looking for video stories, both short and long form. And then later in the day, they're looking to move back to the iPad, and at night, they're actually reading longer form journalism. To me, we've got a bigger audience than we've ever had. Now, it may not be the days of an ashtray and a typewriter and a coffee cup sitting on an old chipped wooden desk, but, you know, that was 30, 40 years ago, and we have to deal with what's happening today and tomorrow.
But did Fairfax, over the past 15 years, miss the opportunity of the internet? Certainly most newspaper companies in 1996 may not have known the potential, but you're now in this desperate situation because you didn't act soon
I don't think
enough.
we're desperate, and we're actually in a better position than, say, some of our competitors, because we're still retaining our newspaper heritage and our legacy. We're about to take our newspapers compact in the next 6 to 9 months. That's a major investment in our newspapers. That's The Age and the Herald going to compact size after 180 years of being broadsheets. And we have a big challenge ahead of us to make sure that we take our readers with us, and we've got to make sure that the content remains the best possible content that you can get. So we've invested in that, but don't forget that, I mean, Fairfax was the first big media company in Australia to actually invest in the internet and set up websites, and we've got a much larger audience than our direct competitors, particularly News Limited.
But shareholders would say you haven't been able to make money out of it.
Well, show me people who are making vast sums of money out of the internet. I mean, the Daily Mail, the Mail Online, which is now the world's biggest news website online, they're only just scraping through at the moment.
Well, what about car sales and Seek and all those companies that I guess it's long been said that Fairfax could have been part of?
I mean, the rear-view mirror is a wonderful thing, particularly in the media. I think we own more rear-view mirrors in the media than just about any other craft or industry around. Everyone can look back in the past and say, well, you missed that opportunity, you missed it here, but we actually got in first. And I'm very happy that we did that.
Moving to the compact format for your 2 broadsheets, a tabloid format, you've promised that editorial content will remain unchanged and that existing content will be retained. How are you going to do that?
We're not going to do as much duplication, I guess, as we've seen in the past. Now, we've announced that about 150 editorial staff around the Metro division will be taking redundancy over the next couple of months. And that's a large number. We've got around about 850 staff all up. And a lot of people have said, well, how do you retain the quality? And my answer has been less duplication. So, we're not going to cover the same event using 3 or 4 different reporters. And I'll give you a great example. A couple of weeks ago when we made some announcements, the ABC, much to their credit or discredit, had 6 or 7 reporters, separate reporters calling me during the day, all wanting to ask the same question. Now, they're funded by taxpayers, and it's very lucky for them, and that's fantastic. We're not. We're a business, and we need to drive profits for our shareholders and our investors, and we can't do that sort of thing.
Okay, so it's only by duplication or no duplication anymore that you're going to keep editorial standards unchanged?
We are not changing editorial standards at Fairfax, and in fact we'll be lifting them even higher.
Of course, this is what your readers and the communities of Sydney and Melbourne and also your staff care deeply about. How can you guarantee that quality journalism and the investment in that is maintained consistently if you're cutting costs all the time?
Our audiences will decide that, both online and in print. They'll make that decision. And if we're not serving up good enough journalism for them, then they'll make that decision. Journalism lies at the heart of what Fairfax is, and we've put a stake in the ground recently and we've said we are proud of our independent journalism. That's what we stand for. Quality is in the eye of the beholder. Independent journalism is not. You can't go and buy that anywhere.
So are you saying that if your readers don't continually move to digital or read the compact version, that you won't be able to make the investment in quality journalism?
We'll continue making that investment. I mean, we are committed to quality journalism. That is what Fairfax is about. That is what we hang our hat on. And, it would be ridiculous and crazy for us to walk away from that, because then we just join the rest of the fray. You have a look out there at the moment, the media industry around the world and in Australia is a sea of noise. I call it Babylon, because that's what everyone's doing. They're babbling on all the time. And there's only here and there a few little gems that you can pick up where you say, wow, I didn't know that. And, we're one of those places that people come to because they actually trust what our mastheads represent, that integrity, and that will continue.
Can you guarantee that the voice of the 2 papers, the Sydney paper has a Sydney, New South Wales voice, The Age has a Melbourne, a Victorian voice, how can you guarantee that you keep those voices if you're essentially going to eventually go to one newsroom, East Coast newsroom, and national newsroom?
Well, we're not going to go to one newsroom, and then just throwing copy and content into each masthead. Very, very conscious we are that Fairfax is just the sum of its parts. People don't look at us as Fairfax, they look at us as the Sydney Morning Herald or the smh.com.au. And in Victoria, they look at us at The Age, and in Canberra, they look at us as the Canberra Times. And again, it would be corporate suicide to walk away from all of those things that those mastheads stand for. And we've been very conscious in the last few weeks as we've gone about our newsroom restructuring to ensure that the very best of those mastheads are kept intact.
So when you have shared newsroom, shared business coverage, shared Canberra coverage, how can you keep the 2 voices intact of both papers?
Because those individual voices will stay the same. Michelle Grattan will continue being the chief political editor of The Age. Phil Curry will continue being the face of politics for the SMH. That's the way it will be. I mean, our readers... So
they will be kept separate,
absolutely.
Immunised from the other...
Well, not even immunised, but even they're our key brands. People like Ross Gittins are big, big names for the Sydney Morning Herald, and people come to us because of them.
If I live in Sydney, do I subscribe to a digital version of the Sydney Morning Herald? And if I live in Melbourne, do I subscribe to a digital version of The Age, or do I subscribe to both?
You'll be able to get everything, Helen. I think we've announced that there will be a digital subscription brought in early next year, in about March. And what we're looking at there is a model very similar to, say, the New York Times model, where you pay 20 visits and you get them for free, and then after that we might start charging. Otherwise, we'll be bundling up. You'll be able to get the newspaper, and you'll be able to get a tablet subscription, or you get the newspaper and a subscription to every masthead and every platform in Fairfax.
You've said that you could progress to an all-digital-only output if the compact version of the print paper doesn't succeed. When would that be by? Have you given yourselves a deadline?
How long have newspapers got? It's the big question. I think Rupert Murdoch was asked that at the Leveson inquiry recently in Britain, and his answer was 5 or 10, and I think later on he has pushed it out to 20 years. No one knows. No one knows where this media business is going. And I often say, well, look, I can't make any promises about where we will be publishing and on what platform in future. It may be that in 10 or 15 years' time a holographic newspaper delivery boy will be beamed into your living room shouting out the headlines for you. Well, no one knows. No one knew that 5 years ago we'd be publishing on the iPad.
But you must have given yourself some time guideline. You're doing this major restructuring. You must have said, if the print version, the new compact version, doesn't work, in 24 months or maybe 30 months, we'll dump it and move to digital. No,
I mean, I'm not aware of any of that planning, and honestly I can say that. I know that, a company that doesn't do any future strategy and future planning would be crazy anyway, but no one can foresee what's coming because it's changing so rapidly, and we're in the eye of the biggest storm that has ever passed through media, probably for 500 years. This is unprecedented. No one has ever been here before. And to me, that just means that we've got some great opportunities.
Can you explain the business model a bit more? Because if the vast bulk of your profits and your revenue come from the print versions, why are you cannibalising them for the future?
We're not cannibalising them because we're actually... the investment that will be required to go compact is quite large. There are large design teams. One of the reasons we're going compact, apart from a lot of readers and recent reader surveys saying we'd love you to be just a little bit smaller and become the ultimate mobile device, if you like, which I've always thought newspapers are, is our cost base. We have very large printing plants, and they cost hundreds of millions of dollars to run every year. Now, if we lose those two major press plants that we have in Melbourne and Sydney, there are huge savings for this company, and we can actually reinvest a lot of that money back into the journalism.
But it's a risk, isn't it? Because a lot of your profits and revenue come from newspapers now. Not that much comes from digital.
And we are not running away from newspapers. And I think this compact, people need to understand that this move to compact is the most significant change to our papers in almost 2 centuries. That's a major investment, and we need to make that work, and we will make it work.
If people have been going to get your product online for free, how are you essentially going to make them pay for that, get the genie back in the bottle, which of course not only Fairfax is grappling with, most newspaper companies around the world are grappling with that.
Yeah, I know. There's not one model around the world that you would sort of hold up and say that's the real benchmark. But what we're seeing is that if your material, if your stories, if your pictures, if your video and artwork are good enough, quality will win out. We're also living in an age when facts have been devalued. If you think about it, 20 years ago, a 14-year-old kid living in Penrith couldn't find out the name of the president's dog, he couldn't find out the current temperature in Mumbai or how the Dow Jones just finished, but he can now with 3 clicks on his computer.
Does he want that?
He's a pretty advanced 14-year-old, I'm telling you. But he can find that out with 3 clicks. Now that would normally have taken a librarian days to track down that information. So that means that facts have become devalued, And what people now need, the real value, is in explaining those facts and providing context. So we need great journalism, great independent journalism, and great context around the stories that we publish.
Just a couple more issues. The share price was around $5 several years ago. I know you're not on the board, so you're not directly responsible for that. It's now around 50...
I'm glad I'm not directly responsible for that.
Well, I could hold you responsible, but I won't. It's now around 50 or 60 cents. Do you acknowledge that this could be a risk that wrecks the company?
What, the move towards digital?
These changes.
Every media company right now is at a real tipping point. There's no disguising that. But we've got a strategy in place. We've been out there and we've boldly said, this is where we think we're going, and we've acted on that strategy, and this is where Fairfax is heading, okay? And we've made it very, very clear. And if you can go out and find me another media company that has been so straightforward and transparent, I'm very keen to see them.
Gina Rinehart is stalking the company. How would you feel if she had 2 board seats, maybe more? Do you think that could potentially hurt the business if she gets the editorial control that she seems to want?
I mean, that's being played out right now, and it could be played out for weeks or months to come. Hey, if you've got the bucks, then you can buy your way onto the board, and if you really want to invest, then you have every right. That's how our economy works. We've stated our strategy. This is where we are editorially, and this is where we are as a company. And we're waiting now to see where Ms. Rinehart, what her strategy is and what her vision is for the company.
Garry Linnell, thank you.
Thanks, Helen.